Hi, it's wonderful to be at the Tech Inclusion Conference. Grateful that Google could partner with the conference. My name is Genteel. I'm head of business inclusion for Google. I work on our diversity inclusion team, where our mission is to empower and enable Googlers to eliminate biases and derive equitable outcomes for our people, our products, our processes, and across our culture. I want to talk a little bit more about how we're doing that across our products and business operations, but first I want to tell you the story of Nikki Barua. I first met Nikki about 4 years ago at a conference, an industry conference. We have a slide issue here. An industry conference for supplier diversity. Nikki was an entrepreneur who was just starting her business. She came forward and took the leap with us to join our Accelerate with Google Academy. This is a digital skills training for small businesses. So she passed with flying colors, she got others on board, she grew her web presence. We filmed a short story with her about all that we learned from her and all that she learned from us, and went on her way. I reconnected with Nikki earlier this year. Sorry, there we go. Can we get the slides going? Can we go back to the beginning, please? There we go. Can we go back to the beginning, please? That was the end. So I reconnected with Nikki earlier this year, and she told me this amazing story. She said, not only were the technical skills critical for my business, but the confidence that I gained by being part of a community that was helping me grow and grow my business online. As an immigrant, as a gay woman, as a minority, I felt like I was successful. I felt like I was partnered with Google. I felt like I was partnered with my colleagues in the space. And we began to realize that in our goal to bridge the digital divide and bring more folks in to an industry where underrepresented audiences were not reaping all the opportunity that we could, that we had something very powerful and we wanted to harness more of this kind of energy. So, bridging the digital divide, our goal. How do we do this? It's really about our business and our users. Now, the current business model for diversity, as I understand it, is something like diverse people bring diverse perspectives, and that leads to more diverse outcomes. And we've heard a little bit about that in different sessions today. Here's the challenge with this business model. The challenge is that we can't wait for the industry, and as a company, we can't wait for that representation to happen before we produce those inclusive outcomes across our business. So, what if we began to design for inclusion inside of everything we do, inside of every product, in every way that we face the field? What if we began to hack for inclusion? So we started off on that journey, and we borrowed this model from the Stanford D School. Probably many of you have seen this design thinking model. And it talks about empathy. Let's figure out what our users really want, what they really love. And let's use that insight to define the challenge for us as it aligns our business with these users. Let's ideate, throw 1,000 things on the wall, and then let's prototype. Pick one of those things and let's stand something up that we can learn from. And finally, test. Let's test and test again with the original user in mind. So I want to tell you about a few things that we've been doing along this journey. So the first is with our Google Fiber team. And early in our Google Fiber efforts, we had trouble connecting specifically to minority communities, Black and Hispanic communities. And then our digital inclusion team, led by Erica Swanson at Google Fiber, did something remarkable and started to learn about those groups. And we learned that, yes, they were in most need of connecting to high-speed internet. We learned that we could meet them and find them through community partners. the fiber team began to grow partnerships with groups like the City Housing Authority of Austin. And before long, fiber had made a commitment to deliver free internet to housing developments in Austin, and then that commitment to every city forward. It was through that initial user insight. Define. This is Erica Liu of Great NOLA, one of our great small business suppliers. We learned early on that while Google was a big company and spending $1 billion with large minority and other diverse businesses, that we weren't having that kind of broad-based impact across small businesses, and that we should be. That you should be no less likely to be doing business with us because of your race, ethnicity, gender, or any other marginalization, right? And so we redefined the challenge to say, let's reach that parity of diverse suppliers across our company base. And I'm proud to say in just the 2 years that we've stood up this program, we've brought hundreds of new suppliers into our system and spent over $120 million with those small businesses. Ideate. We've known for some time a good and bad news story about small businesses working on our platform. For small minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses, we're driving over $5 billion of economic impact for those groups. The bad news is, because they're less prevalent on the web, we're leaving that same amount on the table of impact in those communities. So we brought in a diverse group of Googlers with diverse perspectives and our top leadership inside of the business organization, and we threw 100 things on the wall. And in addition to some of the things we tested, we came out of that session with a core commitment from our leaders to grow a business resource platform for minority-owned businesses, which we're really excited about. Prototype. In our Google Photos and camera products, we had user insights that told us that people with different skin tones preferred different kinds of lighting and filters. And frankly, black and brown people weren't all that happy with how they were rendering in digital photos. And with a goal to make everybody render beautifully, we began to prototype a way for users to come test those products. Indeed, diverse Googlers who were right in front of us, using that diversity right inside of the company. And test. And this is where I want to talk about our efforts to get closer to communities that are underrepresented across our business. We've tested and tested and tested various ways to do that, to get more culturally relevant. The Accelerate with Google program that I talked about earlier, we have stood up over 250 events in communities of color across the country. Google for Entrepreneurs has trained over 15,000 people in entrepreneurial skills, some of them with, like our partners, Black founders in Durham, North Carolina. And in Oakland nearby and in Harlem, we're teaching coding through our Code Next labs. So what does this all mean for us? Well, we're doing it with dozens of teams across Google. It's something we can replicate and repeat. It's something that's about our business. It's about how we find our users, but it also does come back to our people and the fact that we have to use the talent that we have in our communities, in this community here today, and all the communities that we represent, to drive that inclusion, to design for inclusion across everything we do. We can't wait for some imagined future point where we have the representation that we want. We have to do this urgently. My favorite talk, and I'll close here, from Martin Luther King was an economic justice talk, and he talked about how progress doesn't happen on its own. We have to help it along. We have to push it along. The fierce urgency of now. So we're doing some of that. I want to invite this community to continue to partner with us and with Google on that journey. And I hope that we can begin to and continue to hack inclusion into everything we do in this industry and solve the biggest problems using technology. Thank you.